Are they people that are, so it's people that have to move, people that are forced to move, and possibly investors? If we can think through who would other be an ideal client that's going to be qualified and ready in today's market. So think about that. Once we kind of know who that ideal person is, what are their current pains? What are their current pains that they're experiencing? So one, we know a pain. If they're forced to move, they have to move. I think another pain, obviously, is interest rate. I think another pain is less buying power. And I mean, obviously, it's market specific, but in this exercise with this client that we were walking through, he said there's becoming more shortage of homes, housing shortage. So if we know those are the pains, then what are the solutions? What are the solutions? And what we talked about was point buy downs. And I think that's for buyers and sellers, right? It's a solution for buyers. That's also a solution for sellers. Instead of, hey, let's just do a price reduction. Hey, let's say, hey, seller to offer point buy down instead of reducing the price. Looking at that as a solution. I think vacant homes are a solution as a possible off-market strategy of finding a property, which then if we say, okay, well, point buy downs, what does that solve? That solves that. It helps. It doesn't solve it. So it's the best solution possible to the pain of interest rate and less buying power. Vacant homes can help with the housing shortage. And then the have to move, what is that concierge type service to ease the experience the best way possible, right? Just anything and everything that you could do. So those are possible solutions. So think through, okay, because I promise you that the ideal client right now, going into the end of the year, going into the first of next year, is not the same client that we had at the beginning of this year. So we got to be thinking through who's our ideal client, who's our ideal client, who's our ideal client. We're always thinking there, right? So who's the client? What's their pain? What are their desires? How can we provide solutions for them? And so this is the constant progress that we have to keep thinking through. And so this really never ends, especially as the market and the opportunities never end. The next thing we go through is we ask ourselves, what are the qualifications? What qualifies a client in today's market? And this is good for working for buyers and sellers, but if you have a team helping them, what are they doing working with buyers and sellers? So what are their qualifications? And you just have to go through in your market, what are the qualifications? Like, what price point are they going to be in? Do they have to have cash? And then, what is the, if not that, then what is the credit score? What does their credit score need to be? So it's kind of, what is the budget? What is their budget? Then you look at, well, who are they? Like, what is their authority? Like, what profession are they to be able to get into a range of home with cash, with a score? Are we going to have the anomalies here and there? Yes, but for the most part, your ideal client, what do they have? And then you start to think through, well, what do they need? What do they need? They need to get into a home, right? And or get rid of their home as fast as possible, or get into a home within their budget. And then timing. And so the people that, like, if you say, and so we were working through this, and this was his example was, these are, what we're seeing, people that are forced to move, or investors, and they have to move. The interest rate is a pain, less buying power, housing shortage, point buy downs, vacant homes, concierge service is a solution. then the qualification for them was in the 300 to 400K range. They have some money saved and their credit score is above 670, 680. And they're really in the healthcare tech focus. And they're needing to get moved, but they're needing to get moved or in before Christmas. So that's their timeline. So we're like, just like, okay, hey, we got a tremendous sense of urgency in our conversations. Now, what happens if we come across somebody and we identify that they're not qualified, that they're unqualified? What do we do with them? What do we do with the unqualified people? What is that for you? Do you have an affiliation with the rental management company that you can, refer over? Is it advantageous for you to get somebody into a rental? Like in Oklahoma, that shit don't pay. In Dallas, Texas, that shit pays, right? Florida, that pays, right? Some markets pays, in some markets it doesn't. So that's something to kind of consider. What do you do with the unqualified people? What is the offer that you have for them? But the qualified, we already know what we're going to do with them. Now, when you get into the qualified, what are the qualifying questions? And that's real simple, right? Remember, the process is set the appointment, qualify the appointment. And we've got to make sure we're getting back to the seller counseling interviews and the buyer counseling interviews more than ever, right? I think we've been able to wing it. We'll just figure it out as we go. And this is why it's super important, set the appointment of why, set it now, qualify it while you're on the phone. Ask those questions, ask those qualifying questions to determine, hey, are they in that range? Are they a real buyer? Or are they a real seller in today's market? So get those interview questions. And then what's the journey we take them on? If they're ready, we set the appointment, we qualify the appointment, and then we go win the appointment. And we win them as a client. But we've just got to remember, getting back to that, but we just have to remember who is a client in today's climate. I would also say if they're unqualified, you definitely want to put them on a nurture campaign. You want to be dripping on them. You want to be adding value. You want to be touching base. You don't want to lose that. You want to create that nurture, especially if there's a motivation there. So that's just kind of the process. It was kind of on my mind when we were working with a client today, and just constantly thinking about, it's something I think about all the time, even on the coaching side of things, like who's the ideal client? What are their current pains? Who do I want to work with? And then, what is the offer to them especially to continue to grow, right? To attract new clients. What's going to resonate? What's going to resonate for them at this time? So those are just some things we were thinking about. I tell you, one of the things that we're really committed to right now for us is how we can be world-class with our CRM, and really committed to that, really focused on that. I know D and Iva and Z have been, a lot of focus around the database, around the CRM. And that's, if you want to know, like, conversations across the country, a lot of our opportunities are coming from people's databases. And Travis and I talked about that on the Expert Mentors today. It's no matter what, and that's the power of YouTube, because what YouTube does, YouTube helps build a relationship and builds trust. And so, no matter what happens with real estate, the real estate industry, whatever happens over the next, 24, 30 months, as we get into, January of 25, really January or early 25s, as we know what happens in November of 24, then you get kind of wherever that shakes out. But even with real estate, by the end of the decade, it'll always come down to a decision of trust. So we have to remember that. What are we doing to make deposits and build trust in our community now, right? What are we doing now to be able to build that trust? And it's just consistency, it's authenticity times time is what builds trust. And we just got to make sure we're showing up and doing those things. So yeah, it was a great conversation. I highly recommend you guys jump in, listen to it as Expert Mentors 203 with Travis Plum. And then, yeah, hopefully that framework, thinking about who your ideal client is right now, who you want to work with, and really think through that regard.